just back from a fairly short trip up to West Yellowstone and into Yellowstone. Soon I went. It was awesome. Saw all kinds of critters. Not too crowded. It was a great little getaway. But we're back. Had some time to do some reading and studying. Unfortunately, came back to the news that northern Israel, the Golan Heights region, attacked from Lebanon, killed 14 young children playing soccer field. It's so interesting. This situation will be very little talked about. It won't be brought up because it doesn't fit the narrative of the poor Palestinians and how Israel has destroyed them, hurt them, curtailed them from progressing, and taken their land, and on and on and on. So I was sent a video from a YouTube channel. It's called Zion Media, I think. I don't really recommend it. I'm not going to post their video, but if you want to look them up, But they had Chief Mida on, and they were talking about Palestine. And it just got me so ticked. I left a comment on there. But this is my opinion, but the premise was by the two guys that did the interview with Chief Mida, and I'll talk about him in just a minute, but the premise was that what happened to the Native American is similar to what's happening to the Palestinians, the poor Palestinians. And the half-truths and lies that was put on by this presentation, to me, was just my head was about ready to explode. So let me just see if I can you can tell I'm a little bit frustrated right now. But first off, the premise was that the Palestinians were there way before, and they called it Palestine, Israel Palestine. This program did, and Chief Mida agreeing with it. Now, Chief Mida has been on virtually everybody's YouTube channel that's LDS or that, I shouldn't say it that way. That's not true, but a lot of people have had him on. I think he has some interesting things and whatnot, but I'm always hesitant to get on somebody's bandwagon. I know there's other channels, they'll have Abraham Gileadi and run with that for a while. Then they'll have the chief come on, or then they'll have somebody else come on. I don't know. I'll tell you how I feel about it, similar to how I feel about this Ezra Eagle thing that's been going on for the last few years, where Ezra 2 in the Apocrypha writing, there's a chapter on Ezra's eagle, and it's compared to the presidents of the United States and the short feathers and the long. And I used to know a little more about it than I do now, but when President Trump lost to Biden, then it didn't really work, and so they had to reformulate it. And anytime something like that happens, it's just like, And I've always struggled a little bit with these prophecies that we have absolutely no. By prophecies, this Ezra Eagle, we have no other point to validate it. It's just this stands alone, and I'm just hesitant to get on board with it. That's just how I feel, and I know many of you are just you love Michael B. Rush, and there's others that he wasn't the originator of the Ezra Eagle, but in comparing it with the United States of America, but and the presidents, I think is it 10 presidents maybe? I can't remember it all, but certain things have to happen, and if they don't, then I guess they were wrong. Is kind of the consensus, and it has to happen, by the inauguration time, I think, is what I'm hearing now. So, me, I if I can't validate it in this 4 standard works, it's back pocket stuff for me. Like I'm not discounting it. I'm just going to put it in my back pocket because I can't really get my heart and soul around it if there isn't another point of reference. That's just how I feel. So the chief Mida is kind of in the same boat for me. He comes on the scene. He has stuff, but I don't know. I'll listen to him. I'll listen to what he has to say. But I've seen too many people get... So the Heartlanders were immediately just so excited, to have him. But then he mentions that Mesoamerica is also part of the people of the Book of Mormon. And then all of a sudden, they shied away from him, and now I think they're having a meeting of the minds, and maybe they'll sort it out, to help each other out and whatnot. But I don't know. But what they said on this, okay, so back to this on Zion Media, I think is the YouTube channel. And the video, I think, was called Chief Midaga's View on Palestine or something like that. So just the fact that they call it Palestine and Palestinia or the Palestinians, red flag to me. It is Israel. It's the land of Israel. Prophecies have been fulfilled. You can check them off the list of prophecies that they will come back to their land and that they will renew the land, and they've done that. Let's look at areas that are Palestinian controlled in Israel and see if they've been renewed and if they've been growth and it's been beautiful. Well, it's not. And I've been to many of those places in what would be called Judea or Samaria, and other people would want to call that the West Bank. And it's not always a pretty place. In fact, very seldom is it. But where Israel is, it's blossoming. It's the technology, the growth. Now, it's not. You can always point out corruption in governments. There's no question about that. But let's look at real biblical prophecy and prophecy in the Doctrine and Covenants, prophecy in the Book of Mormon about the land of Israel and about the people and the Jews returning. This is just one. I just think this is so interesting, and I've brought this up before, but this is the dedicatory prayer. We've been asked by President Nelson to study Section 109, the dedicatory prayer, verse 62. So section 109, verse 62. We therefore ask thee to have mercy upon the children of Jacob, that Jerusalem from this hour may begin to be redeemed, and the yoke of bondage may begin to be broken off from the house of David. Ooh, house of David. And the children of Judah may begin to return to the lands which thou didst give to Abraham their father. So this ties in the Abrahamic covenant. It didn't come through Ishmael. Ishmael had a blessing, there's no question, posterity, all kinds of things. But the land specific went through Isaac and then Jacob and then the sons of Jacob. So when the children of Israel, after their exile in Egypt for 400 years through Moses and really Joshua coming into the promised land, it was their land. It's not promised. It's not made. That's not made up. So for this idea that the Palestinians were there before the Jews, and so the Jews don't belong there, And in fact, Chief Mida says in this interview, he goes, they haven't been there for 2,000 years. What makes them think they should have any right to it? And taking this land from these poor Palestinians. First of all, the word Palestine and Palestinians, it is a form of Philistines, right? But the Palestinians aren't descendants from the Philistines. The Philistines were basically wiped out. Their culture, their people, wiped out by the Babylonians. They're long gone. So, what's his name? It's Emperor. He was a Roman emperor for the destruction of Jerusalem. Hated the Jews, hated Israel, hated Jerusalem, and so the Roman emperor. He named the area Philistina, Palestina, and that's where that name, and it stuck for many years. In fact, the Orson Hyde call it Palestine, and early church leaders Palestine. But that was just a name given by someone who hated the name Israel, hated the name Jews or Jewish or Judah, and so named it after the enemy of Israel, which they had many. They had the Canaanites and whatnot, but the Ammonites, there were many enemies of Israel, but I would say the Canaanites and the Philistines were the two main enemies that lasted centuries, but really the Arab / Muslim citizen of Israel now has they actually came from neighboring Arab countries, mostly from Egypt. And moved in to an area that nobody else wanted at the time. Now, when Israel became a state in 1948, prophecies being fulfilled that it would overnight become a nation again. And then in the 6-Day War in 1967, that area expanded, miracle upon miracle of what happened there. And then since 1967, there's just been this huge growth, an expansion and beautifying of the land. And that's prophecy being fulfilled. Now, nobody thinks of Israel as being a terrorist country or promoting terrorism. Like there aren't Israeli terrorist cells throughout the world. But when you think of radical Islam, when you think of Palestinians, the PLO, and you think of Hamas, you think of Hezbollah, because they infiltrate, and radical Palestinians within Israel, in the ancient city of Shechem, in that area. It's horrible, and these are terrorists. And to say that there's these poor victims, it's crazy. It's crazy talk. But it's the media narrative now. And so I was so disappointed to hear Chief Mida and these two other guys that are LDS, I'm assuming, Latter-day Saints, just buying into this garbage that's not biblical. It's not scriptural. It's just so frustrating to me. I had to speak on it because the attacks are coming from the Iranian proxies of Hezbollah, Hamas being the other one, and for Chief Mida to say, that they could gone into Gaza and in 3 days taken out the Hamas. That's so ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And his qualification is that he was a Marine for 14 years. So he knows that's what they could do. Really interesting. City with millions of people, very concentrated, underground tunnels, trying to minimize and root these people out. And Hamas was elected by the people. And more evidence on the October 7th attack, where they brutalized, just went into kibbutzes, places where innocent people and children were just gross things done. Let's just say that. And to say that it wasn't just Hamas, but it was the citizens, it was the people that participated in this. And you don't know one from the other when you're there. It's just ridiculous to think that this, they could have just handpicked them out in 3 days and it would have been over. And that these evil Israelis just want to annihilate a whole group of people. That's just garbage. It's just garbage. There were Jews living in Gaza and were forced out by the Israeli government to give that land to them. Probably, in hindsight, a huge mistake. And so you leave it up to these people. If you don't root them out, it's just gonna end up the same way. Look at the billions of dollars given to the people of Hamas. And I say Hamas because the people elected that government to run Gaza. And the leaders they don't even live there. They took billions of dollars that was supposed to be for the people. Hamas used the money given to them to do their tunnels and all their stupid stuff. And really, it was to the detriment of the people of Gaza. This wasn't done by Israel. So to just get into this narrative that they're all victims and that Israel are the bad guys. So what we're doing is we're saying the white European, what they did to the Native American is exactly what Israelites, the land, the people, and let's just say the Jews are doing what they're doing to the Palestinians is the same thing. This is so interesting to me, how convoluted this is. You know, one thing that Chief Mida never really brings up is the infighting among the tribes in North America, and the alliances that they would make. So one tribe would make an alliance with the British to fight against another tribe that had made an alliance with the French. And so these tribes were fighting amongst themselves, and that's never really mentioned, but it's the truth. If they would have united, they could have fought the evil, white man that came in. But there was so much infighting and alliances between the French and the British, and it just is what it is. Now, typically the French would get along a little bit better with the native tribes than the British, but sometimes there would be an alliance with the British with the native tribe to fight, and so this is really what happened in the United States because of that division. Now, there was one chief, Tecumseh, as I recall. I'm going way back in my studies, but Tecumseh tried to unite. I think he was one of the 5 civilized tribes. You have the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Cree, the Seminole, and the Cherokee, and this is really where we obtained our form of government was from these very advanced tribes mostly in the east and the Ohio River Valley area, as I recall, and there tried to be a unifying, but there was too much infighting, and they had one tribe would have slaves from other tribes and all these things. So when you hear certain people talk, it's always the evil white man and that the the Native American or the Indian were the people that were peaceful, that respected each other's property and the land, and there was really no property and no boundaries. And to some extent, that's true, but there was infighting, and you just have to acknowledge that, or it's not legit. It's not legit, in my opinion. So you have to acknowledge all these things. So the evil white man is of a tribe too, and most of us evil white men and women are from the tribe of Ephraim through Joseph. And guess what? We're promised things, and we have every bit of a right to be here as anybody else. Okay? Tribe of Ephraim. Now, we were part of the lost 10 tribes, if you want to call us lost. We were in the northern kingdom. We got scattered to the north. What's north? What's north? Well, a lot of Europe is north, and particularly Great Britain and the United Kingdom, if you will, including other countries, but a lot went to that area. And it was that blood of Israel. I've talked about this before, but really the northern kingdom is represented by Ephraim, and the southern kingdom represented by Judah. And you had Benjamin in the southern kingdom, but Judah was the surviving tribe, if you will, before the Babylonians came. But the northern kingdom got taken over by the Assyrians with alliances with them. And Ephraim was, they were bad. They aligned with the Assyrians and started worshiping their gods and doing all kinds of things. And part of the restoration is the restoration of Ephraim. And that's why you have in scriptures in Isaiah and other places where you have Ephraim and Judah, and that they won't battle anymore, and that they'll become one, and all that. Well, that's the representation of the two kingdoms, the northern and the southern kingdom, represented by two of the main tribes. Well, the tribe of Ephraim, when the Latter-day Church was restored through the prophet Joseph, where did most of the converts come from? Where did most of the missionary work really take off? And the founding fathers, where did they come from? This was all prophesied to happen, and we have to embrace that. We can't say evil white man. We're from a tribe too, and we're from the tribe of Ephraim, and to not acknowledge that is ridiculous. And to not acknowledge Judah as inheriting the land of Israel is ridiculous. The prophecies are there. I see total, by these three individuals on this channel, I saw total disregard for the prophecies in the Old Testament, a little bit in the New Testament, the Book of Mormon, big time, and the Doctrine and Covenants. So, very unfortunate, in my opinion. Now, this attack in northern Israel that took place yesterday in the Golan Heights region, something has to be done. You just can't allow this kind of stuff to happen. And I don't think the U.S. should be involved. I think individuals should contribute as they feel to Israel, to the people individually, but I don't think our government should be involved. That's just my opinion. I don't think we ought to be involved in any of these wars and have our military have money. The Ukrainian thing is a joke. All this, it's just horrible. So I'm not promoting that, but what I am saying is that Israel has a right to exist, and the people have a right to defend their land. We're getting into the war chapters, and come follow me, and it's all about that. It's all about that. One thing I was so disappointed in that it's getting harder and harder for me to read the Liahona, that used to be the ensign. So everything's a metaphor. Everything's a metaphor. It's almost like, let's just pretend that there really weren't wars or defenses or armaments, swords and all these things. It really wasn't that. But let's think of it as a metaphor of, fighting sin and resisting temptation and doing these things. Everything's a metaphor. Well, these were real wars, and real people were killed by the millions in these wars. And so the war itself was not a metaphor. That's not to say that you can't liken things, but the first meaning is they were engaged in war to defend their freedom and their liberties, right? So I think that needs to be acknowledged. Okay, now the other thing that's been talked about since we've been gone is the Olympics and the opening thing and all the disgusting alphabet soup stuff. Really, you guys are shocked, and the politicians, isn't it interesting that we have a list of the Utah politicians because the Utah was given the Olympics in 2036 or something. I don't know. I could care less. Do you think there'll be the Olympics if Jesus comes and reigns, the millennial reign? Do you think we'll still have the Olympics? That's a question you can answer in the comment section. Do we think there'll be a winter and a summer games if Christ is the King, Lord of Lords, King of Kings, and during his millennial reign? Will we continue to have the Olympics? That's a question for you to ponder. So, Governor Cox in Utah, he's just disgusted with this attack on Christianity and a sacred picture, a painting that was done in the Last Supper, and you had these. Really? You're talking a guy that did his pronouns, his preferred pronouns, and for the bathrooms used by anybody, and having dudes who identify as a woman participate in sports and in women's sports and all this stuff. This is the guy that's just disgusted. And we're going to show, when we have the Olympics, we're going to show family values. The guy's the biggest phony and just so fake. Every time he just opens his mouth, it just infuriates me. And it's Governor Cox I'm talking about. Of course, Mitt Romney, he just loved it. No surprise there. But what is interesting to me, and I haven't quite come to grips on this, but we had all these politicians, Utah politicians and others, comment how disgusted they were that the people of France, the people putting on the Olympics, would condone and actually promote such a thing, an attack on Christianity. And it was all politicians talking about it. I haven't heard any leader of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints comment on it. And I wonder why. Like, is it, should they comment on it? Should they react to it? Should they say, this is disgusting and this is an attack on Christianity and we need to stand up? Or should they just ignore it? I don't have an answer for that. It seems like to me that past scriptural examples we have, there's a denunciation by a church leader against current wickedness that's going on. That it's bold and it's out there. Now, I'm not saying there should be or shouldn't be. It's just interesting that politicians are making this a big deal, particularly Utah politicians, because we're now Utah's going to have the Winter Games in, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years. I don't know when it is. I don't really pay much attention to all that stuff. But no church leaders are saying this is an outrage. This is disgusting. We need to stand against it. Personally, I would like to see that, but I haven't had anything go my way in so long. I don't ever expect things like that to happen. But I feel compelled to speak out on things like that. And it is disgusting. But is it surprising? On this channel, we've been talking about, this story time reading with these people dressing up as men, dressing up as women, and going in to schools. We've been talking about this for probably 4 years, and so this is it's not surprising at all. Christianity is probably attacked more than any other faith right now. You can say anything you want and degrade, make fun of the most sacred things of Christianity, and it's fine. It's art. It's great. But can you imagine doing that to a certain other religious faith and group? Oh my goodness. It's the Judeo-Christian that's under attack. That's what's under attack. So Jews and Christians, let's hate them. Let's attack them. Let's say everything we can against them. Well, I'll fight that all the time. Because it's just not biblical. It's not scriptural. So I think those are the things I wanted to cover. There's just so many things. You can hardly go a day without something. Now we have a Kamala. I'll try to be nice and saying anything else, but she apparently, Vice President Harris is apparently going to be the anointed through no process. She's going to be running for president. Nobody elected her. She didn't do anything. It's just crazy, right? And all the news media has just elevated her. And you'll see the narrative in all the media saying the same thing, showing the same pictures. We're not that long ago, she was kind of the laughing stock, because she couldn't articulate. She had a lot of word salad, and then that giggle and all that kind of stuff. Well, now she's brilliant. She's presidential. She's moderate. She's not a leftist, which history tells us otherwise. We have all the evidence coming out about the Secret Service and all that with President Trump. The media is saying, "Gosh, was it really a bullet or was it just a piece of glass?" And blah blah blah, and just all these things. We're having more and more evidence about this being very, very nefarious on the assassination attempt on President Trump. So we have all that. Sounds like President Trump is understanding what's going on. He has his own private security detail now, which I think is great. He'll probably not have as many open rallies. That they'll be enclosed where they can control things a lot better. Very fascinating times. Really Book of Mormon kind of stuff being fulfilled right before our eyes. So a lot of interesting things are going to be happening in the next few months. So we'll see what happens. just to kind of recap, I'm going to hesitate to get on the Ezra Eagle bandwagon. So many of you have, I shouldn't say many, but quite a few have suggested that I address that. And that's all I'm going to say is I can't verify it other than through an interpretation of Ezra 2 in the Apocrypha. I can't triangulate that with any other source of Scripture. So it's just interpretation of somebody. There's no, I can't find any prophets, ancient or modern, referring to anything to do with this. So I'm just, could be true, but I'm going to stop feeling it. I'm not feeling on getting on the bandwagon of Chief Mida. I think that's how you pronounce it. He probably has some interesting things. I've been interested in watching a few of his interviews and whatnot. So not on that bandwagon. I have been, someone reached out to me to maybe speak at I can't even remember what it's called, but I think it's a conference in the fall that, is it Firm Foundation Conference, maybe speak at that. So I'm contemplating that. I don't know why someone would want me to speak at a thing like that, but if I can testify of Christ, if I can defend Israel, and if I can speak on these things, I'll do it. But I'm not going to get in anybody's camp, okay, to promote a book or anything like that. It's just that's just not me. But I think that's it for this video. There's just so many things going on. You step away from it all for a few days, and like we did, and going into Yellowstone and just exploring and seeing and experiencing and soaking it all in, and taking a little break from all the stuff, and then you come back and you're just inundated. It's really in one way I hate missing it, because I like to kind of stay on top of things. But on the other hand, it's very rejuvenating to just go. One thing I noticed is that, there's sites that you can see in Yellowstone and other places that are just spectacular. They're magnificent. But the animals is what really draws people. And it's like it changes them to see. So we saw a grizzly, and it was just amazing, and we're all just like, wow, look at the grizzly bear, We're watching it, and it's laying there, and then it gets up and plays around, and then it lays back down in the grass. It was this big open meadow area. It was just awesome. Elk, buffalo to me they're the coolest critter. And I know bison is the correct name, but I'll call them buffalo. Bison, as some people say, bison. But they're such an iconic representation of everything wild, everything pristine to me. And we were in the Lamar Valley, and we saw a herd of hundreds of buffalo. We had never seen that many buffalo in the open out. And you could just imagine, seeing that. And I'm hoping that's how the millennial reign will be, is that we'll be able to witness this kind of rebirth of these wild creatures, right? Where the lamb and the lion lie down together, right? It's just amazing. So I'm just I'm going through the transition of that to all the crap, that we're seeing happening, and the tragedy and the terrible things happening in Israel. And it'll get very little press because it doesn't fit the narrative of the poor Palestinians. 14 Israeli children rocketed and specific target attack on a soccer field by Hezbollah. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. So anyway, that's it. God bless. Love you all. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for. One last thing on the YSA. We talked about the hiring of the age 35 now, and so interesting. One of the comments, several of the comments, like, well, we need that so that we need a award so that people can find each other and get married. And I thought, is that really the purpose of a ward? Is for the social aspect and the marriage and getting together and all that? Perhaps, I don't know. But maybe if the focus was strictly on the worship of Jesus Christ, the worship of God through his son Jesus Christ, and the worship of Jesus Christ, and doing his will, and covenant, keeping covenants. I did a little research on, is the sacrament really renewing baptismal covenants? And I really can't find a scriptural reference for that. There's some similarities. You can go to Mosiah 18 and see some things, about being baptized or becoming a member of the church. But it doesn't really tie the sacrament. The sacrament is the Last Supper, is the Passover meal, that everything is focused on Christ, in my opinion, and not so much on us making a covenant. And I know that might sound a little crazy, but really look at the sacrament prayers and versus what baptism represents, death and resurrection. We can go to section, I think it's 128, and read about baptism and other places. But I think we just say that. We just say, oh, we're so grateful to be here at church today so that we can renew our covenants. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? I don't know. I don't know if the sacrament is really about that. More reflective on what Christ did for us than what we can do for Christ is kind of how I'm feeling from a scriptural basis. But I'll talk more about that later. I got to go. I love you all. Thank you, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.